Hey, everyone. My name is Jessie Bolton, and I am your host for Cyber Careers and Coffee, where we talk about cyber careers, cybersecurity, and not so much coffee, but you can bring your coffee, your Monster, your Celsius, or whatever, and join us. I am here to talk about with Mr. Mike Anderson, mindset mastery, at least the foundations of how do you build your mindset in a chaotic industry where things are changing. There's really not a solution to your everyday. You just got to, figure it out. How do you build that solid foundation where you have that resilience? You build that resilience, that confidence in the industry, whether you're an individual contributor or a CISO, a manager, whatever role you play, it's very important that you stand firm. So I'm going to hand everything over for a minute to Mr. Anderson here. If you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jesse, for this opportunity to be on the live stream.
Yeah.
Um, as I think about, the time of the year it is, this is an ideal time to have a talk like this. And it is our desire today to participate in a meaningful way and to share nuggets of truth that the audience can go and apply immediately. And so
Yes.
thank you again for this fantastic opportunity.
I am so glad you're here. You're not only a friend, a mentor, you're a little bit of everything. If I have
Oh,
something about, like if I'm
thank you.
losing it, which is a lot, I can call you. And I'm so glad to have you on. So thank you for sharing your time with me
Yes, ma'am.
and our
Pleasure.
audience. So I just let everyone know we are on YouTube and we're streaming live on YouTube. We're streaming live on LinkedIn and Facebook. So Bolt Resources Facebook. If you want to join us there, I'm going to put this in the chat if I can here. And we'll figure out how to do that here in a moment. No? Okay, I got it. So thank y'all for being patient as I do that. And if y'all want to follow Mr. Anderson here, I call him Mr. Anderson. He looks so young. He's not like, yeah, he looks like what, 40, right?
That's right.
Follow him, visit with him. And then here is also, if you guys prefer YouTube, visit Cyber Careers and Copy on YouTube. Awesome. All right. So let's get started. I'm also going to, if you guys want to participate, ask questions along the way, please do. I might sneak them in between, but we want to make sure that we leave y'all with some strategies, some nuggets of value that you can take with you. And then we'll answer questions toward the end here. And I'm going to be looking that way at some stuff in chats, and we'll go from there. So, all right, Mr. Mike Anderson, talk to me a little bit about, I can talk mindset all the time. It's very close to my heart, mental health, all of it. And so is cybersecurity. But I just want to start from a foundational standpoint, like what is mindset to you? What does it mean to have a winning mindset? Are you, how did you develop your own, strong mindset in cybersecurity?
You know, I would say that it was somewhere around 11 years ago. That was about the time that I got my first C-level role. And
Sure.
it was during that role I quickly determined, Jesse, that there was something a little bit different about me and the other executives that were around me. They seemed to exude a level of confidence, presence, and 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 just sheer confidence that I didn't seem to have at that point. So what I began to do is work with a mentor and a coach to kind of groom me to be an executive. It was a new space and I didn't have all the answers.
Right.
And as I was sharing out of my heart, really what I was experiencing, what I was thinking about, he quickly picked up on that and said, "Hey, before we can begin to work on those soft skills, we got to get your mindset together."
Amen.
Right.
Yep.
And it was at that point I came in contact with two different mindsets principally. There's watered down to make it easy to digest.
Right.
The growth mindset and then the fixed mindset.
Mhm.
I, through an abundance of hard work, labor, toil, rigor, whatever you want to call it, got there on sheer power, force.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that these two mindsets existed. And what I share with people now is the fixed mindset says, I have these skills, I have these gifts, these talents, and I know this much information. And unfortunately, that's all I know. I can't change that. This is the deck. This is how I'm stacked against life, and I don't really have an opportunity to change it.
Limiting, yeah.
Whereas the growth mindset is on the opposite end of the spectrum. It says that we have this capability to continuously learn,
Yeah.
to grow and develop, to attribute new skills and talents to our being by simply going to the knowledge stores where they exist
Right.
online, books, individuals, cohorts, whatever the case is. So I think with respect to the audience and how do they sort of navigate from where they are to where they want to go with their careers, it would seem to me, using myself as an example, that
Right.
the first thing that we want to do is adopt a growth mindset because that's going to undergird all of the mental components that are necessary for us to execute at a higher level professionally.
Thank you for that. Yes. So there's so much there. I want to unravel a little bit more. So you shared a little bit about your experience and how you came to one key thing that stood out to me was you you got a mentor and a coach. So a lot of us, if you're trying to get into cybersecurity, yes, get a mentor, but how often, it's really easy to go about your career and not get a mentor. Not all of us are thinking, I should get a mentor today,
Right.
as a senior, a professional, senior level professional. And I think that's really key to developing that mindset.
Mhm.
We'll talk about practical ways we can on our own, but to have someone holding you accountable and kind of teaching you the way, whether it's holding your hand or encouraging you and pushing you to your limits.
Yes.
And I say limits lightly. We really don't. I like to think we don't have limits. And to talk about your fixed mindset versus growth mindset. uh, to simplify that, I would, for those listening that maybe are just like, I do have a growth mindset. Well, um, or it might be fixed where ego is, where we think our credentials and we've got it figured out. That's more fixed. If we're thinking, we this is it. I've reached the point in my career. I'm good. I can handle cybersecurity. I can handle this. I can handle that. Well, it's that ego that keeps us limited, or those limited
Mhm.
certain limited
Mhm.
beliefs. Whereas growth mindset, yes, it's more limitless as long as we're learning and willing to learn, like you were talking
That's
about.
right.
Um, let's relating this to cybersecurity, and I wanted we have a couple different audiences, maybe hiring managers that are in security or CISOs at a leadership level. Can you talk about the role of mindset in cybersecurity as a leader, and then if we can shift it to an individual contributor, how it relates to cyber security?
Yeah, certainly. I remember, I'm going to do them in inverse order. I remember being, uh, you know, a network engineer. I didn't come up through the ranks traditionally through cyber as a cyber analyst and working my way through all of those tiers to engineer, architect, and then finally into management. I started out, cut my teeth in infrastructure. So I remember what it was like to be an infrastructure guy back then and working on LAN, WAN, and working the data center and working
Look at
on
you.
servers and such. I think
Okay.
it really helped to undergird my career as a cyber professional. But at the same time, you mentioned coaching as one outlet, mentoring. if I had known that that was going to be the fast track to success,
Yeah.
I would have done that. And my discovery was that it's only because I made it to, that first C-level position that I even came in contact with this. And it troubles me that this isn't taught anywhere.
Mm,
The fact that we've got to spend a good portion of our developmental years developing our inner person,
that's right.
right? And our mindset more often than not, as an individual contributor, folks will say, you know what, that job over there is what I really want, but I don't know how in the world I'm going to be able to get there.
Yeah.
That's a mindset situation that has direct ties to subconscious programming, which generally occurs as we're being reared and those first 7 years, and then after which they're cemented during adolescence and early adulthood. So we've got this really rock solid, unconscious pattern taking place that makes us think and view life differently. And that's applied to all areas of our life, even in our careers. So on an individual level, being able to understand what makes you tick,
Mhm.
what are your triggers? What are your pros and cons? What things make you feel some kind of way, upset, angry, mad, like you're not enough?
Yeah.
Those fundamental things, I think we really have to begin to have a better appreciation and understanding of. And then taking that and applying it to management, I think that's another level of the exact same thing. Because
Mhm.
what I deal
Oh,
with,
yeah.
working with, I got to really frame this correctly because this is a
You're
live
good at that,
stream.
though. You got it.
Um, there are some individuals who are very difficult to work with,
Ooh,
right?
yes. Put
And
an amen
and
in there. Yep.
and if you don't have emotional intelligence and you're not able to self-regulate, what you'll find is you'll give your power away to a purposeless situation, or you
So
will overextend your emotional output. You only have a finite amount for a given day,
right.
too early in the day, and you'll find yourself wiped out at the end of the day. All these things can be avoided, but again, it takes these foundational elements, and whether you learn them as an individual contributor or as a young executive the way I did, either way, this is heavy lifting in the mindset space that we really have to come to understand
So
what
good.
it is that makes us the way we are and our identities, so that we can chart a course to eliminate or upgrade some of the areas where we might be less than ideal.
Yeah, so that's deep, as my daughter would say. "Man, mom, you don't have to do" like, wow, okay, so, hmm, is it that easy? Because like, everything you're saying, I got it, and it is Marcel, thank you for the feedback. Yeah, it's relatable. Working with people that we don't necessarily get along with, understanding our triggers, how important is that? Absolutely. Cybersecurity being so you're not walking into the same environment every day. Um, how so how do we do that? What's the actual as we, move on a little bit here, I wanna take a deeper dive into how do you get to know yourself? How do you get to know your triggers? And in the industry we're in, um, is there something specific? Like, can you give us an example? 'Cause I know back in the day when I've been studying mindset and just how do I gain control over my emotions? You've said, EQ is big, emotional intelligence. How can I gain control over my emotions and the way I think so that way I can make what I want to happen no matter the environment, right? And so and I'm just going to call out because I know some folks are looking for their job right now, their next opportunity in cyber. They're maybe not feeling like they have that growth mindset. Maybe they're feeling limited, and maybe or you have some folks facing maybe they're wearing multiple hats in cybersecurity now and they're just like they've reached the limit. They're like where do they start? So I'll hand it over.
Well, it is a action-based question,
Hmm.
without question. And so, in my other job, where I'm mentoring and coaching for Your Thought Life coaching, I also have a podcast where we unpack. We're at episode 171, I believe. So there's like a huge repository of information that the audience could go out and digest to really help with this. Every episode has action steps, and there's just a phenomenal amount of content there. But for the purpose of the live stream, what we find and what science concurs is one of the best ways for us to really get to know ourselves is through two things principally. First of which is a morning routine, right?
Mm,
In the morning routine, you're going to get up, you're going to spend some quiet, quality time with you, listening to what you have to say, what's on your mind. And just to your right or left, depending on which hand you are, you're going to have a journal and a pen. And each morning, you're just going to journal. Just do that for a whole month. All of the things that come up, write them down. And as you're doing that and you're practicing that, you are entering into what's called meditation,
mm,
which is nothing more than to know thyself.
yeah.
This is a process where fundamentally you're able to begin to see over a period of time, probably 30 to 60 days. It's not a quick hit, right?
Hmm.
What is your composition? What do you believe about you? Who do you think you are? What are your strengths and weaknesses? What areas keep popping up repetitively as you journal? And then from there, you get the second half of that. And
Yeah.
by you sitting down each morning, you're building a muscle. You're beginning to understand, again, at a foundational level, awareness. Awareness is the component that is the gateway into our subconscious minds where we can begin to make some constructive changes, where we can alter patterns that don't serve us or tear down walls that impede our growth and what we think we can or cannot do. So, awareness through meditation is number one. And then I think once we began to understand what it is that we want to change, and we've taken that list and prioritized it, and we've put toward the top what's going to benefit me the most, right? By starting here,
Yeah.
then we have to put together a systematic plan to address that issue. Maybe you get a coach, maybe you're able to harvest information from a credible source on the internet. And I do want to stress credible.
Incredible.
Um, Perhaps there's some people or group that you're a part of where there are some senior people who might be a little beyond where you are, who you can ask those questions to your point, Jay.
Right.
Sorry, Jesse, and get some good constructive feedback. Bottom line is we got to try to understand or first understand who we are, what
Hmm.
are our strengths and weaknesses, what it is after we prioritize those that we want to go after, and then go get the resources necessary to make the change. And then I think you landed right out of the gate from the previous comment. There has to be an accountability mechanism
Yeah.
because many of the things that I'm saying, you guys already know to do, but
Hmm.
you're not doing them, some of you, right? I
Right.
want to
Well,
be holistic. And you're not doing some of these because you don't have anybody to hold you accountable.
yeah, well, and I think it's that too. And they don't, I think there's some taboo around mindset, in cyber. I think there's this, you know, it's a sign of weakness to focus on mindset. Like, or, if, because if we do not watch ourselves. If we're not careful, we're not nurturing our mind, and we're not careful what's going in, what we're thinking, which comes through our thoughts become our words, and and our thoughts become actions. So, um, and if we're not treating ourselves well, um, and walking away and finding balance in our lives, then it turns into what would be a mental health, um, you know, problem or issue within our lives, and how we feel and how we think. So we have to manage it, and that does start with mindset. And then, but it's really hard, I think, for folks to slow down when they have to go fast.
Yeah,
So I think about all the candidates I
yeah.
talk to and CISOs and leaders that when we're having some really candid conversations, they're tired. They don't wanna wake up at 4:30 in the morning. You and I have talked about this.
Right, yeah.
Like, "Oh my gosh, really? I have to wake up earlier?"
Yeah, yeah.
I'm exhausted. So, and so what I wanna stress just for our audience is that if you do make that time, if you start your day proactively, like Mike was talking about, that the importance of journaling is it's a game changer. And I journal my wins, and I really reflect. I start the day feeling grateful.
Yes.
The whole three things to be grateful for. If you don't know what to journal, start there. It feels weird at first, but you get used to it. It does help you. Or if you're reading, I think nurturing the mind, doing something for you, starting the day for you before you go in reaction mode to what your boss is telling you, to the alerts, the ongoing alerts, and the craziness in cyber. So um, I think that's good. And then for those that are in it and they're already stressed, there's some things that can be done, right? So, let's say they're journaling. Let's say they are waking up a little bit earlier, or they're not going to do that. They're just saying, "All right, well, that's one thing I'm not going to do." What else would you suggest for the one that is stressed beyond belief and just burnt out right now?
Well, what the sort of route that I like to send people down is the route that is tried and true and supported by science. And science says that you have an 80% likelihood of having the day that you desire to have when you start your day with a disciplinary act. You sitting down in a quiet place within your home space and disciplining yourself to sit there and listen to your heart, to get into a point where you can feel your heart beating and you can block out all of the other things that are coming again by writing them down. That
Yeah.
80% likelihood has been validated worldwide with a wide range of subjects in various disciplines within the psychiatry and the psychological space. So, if an individual isn't willing to do that, given the payoff,
Mhm.
then I would say the only thing next to that would be probably something along the lines of making a careful evaluation of how the day has been going
Mhm.
versus how you would like or an individual would like the day to go. It still requires a heightened sense of awareness because there's some things because of the subconscious mind is running the show. We're only using 5% of our brain capacity most of the time during the day. That's the
Right.
conscious mind. It's your analytical mind that allows you to take in the idea, I'm going to be different this year. But
Yeah.
the 95% where all the programs sit is the same component that says, yeah, you may want to lose 10 pounds and you may want to stop eating those little Debbie cakes, but guess what? I'm
Yeah.
in control and I want that sugar fix. You're going to
Yeah.
keep eating them. So to get inside of there, the first method works far better. It's going to be brute force,
Brute
right? I
force.
talked to you about my journey, and that was a brute force journey. It could have been easier. It's
Right.
far easier if you'll do the disciplinary act and then take on that 80% profile that gives you all that you need. But if one isn't willing to do that, this other method of taking a careful evaluation over a period of time, how your days are going, what is it in those days that you would like to change,
Yeah.
and then putting a plan in place to correct those areas, situations, circumstances, and then again, having someone that you're going to partner with for accountability, I think is going to be the icing on the cake.
Yes. So all of those are good points. It's really important to, I guess, be easy on yourself if you're trying to find steady ground and develop that winning can do resilient mindset that we're trying to develop. It's not something that comes overnight. It's learned over time. It does take, studies show, 21 days to develop a new habit, because of your subconscious mind. It is, you know, I guess it's the there's different ways. I'm going to say it like this: an object in motion stays in motion, right? An object at rest stays at rest. So, because like if we're in order for us to break a habit, in order for us to do something new, it's going to take action. Like Mike, you were saying, it's going to take going against the grain, doing the uncomfortable things. And that will become easier over time, and our brain will not register it.
That's
It
right.
won't. We won't get on autopilot with it until after that 21 days. You'll start seeing that, oh, okay, I feel more in control of things throughout the day. One thing that I think that has worked for me, and Mike, you and I have talked about it too, like there's been there's been some chaotic days. And I'm not actually in cybersecurity,
Yeah, right.
environment, but I read about it, I talk about it. Um, but one thing that's worked for me is taking walks throughout the day. Like, and not everyone can just go take a walk, right? But making time for physical activity. Um, you don't have to go and try to lose weight, but that our health, our mental state has everything to do with our physical state. They're very closely connected. Drinking water. I'm always drinking water. But getting outside in nature and walking away from a chaotic environment is going to be very, very helpful, to reset and recalibrate, if you will. So, do you want to talk to that? Marcel may have asked a question. We can do that. You're seeing what I'm seeing. If you want to,
There's a there's an overlay that doesn't permit me to see the entire question.
it's okay. Um, I will get to his question,
Okay.
Marcel. I like what you're doing there, so I'm going to bring it up here in a moment. But if we could just talk about real quick, how much our physical well-being plays into a healthier mindset, and how that um, affects cybersecurity. Us being able to think sharply and deal with the chaos.
Yeah, cybersecurity is one of the toughest fields that an individual can participate in. There are numerous demands that are placed on individual contributors within cyber teams, orgs, as well as on the management. And, I've seen both of those with now a decade as a C-level person. And unfortunately, from time to time, I've had to ask my team to participate in unrealistic expectations, but not for a prolonged period. I raise that because this job is known within all of the technology industry to be the most challenging, to be the most stressful.
Right.
I want to give you just a real quick story. 2 years ago, I'm doing my thing. I am, I don't know, by all accounts, I felt like I was doing a fantastic job. And I go in for routine checkup, annual men's check, gets a whole bunch of blood work, get the blood work back. It's like, hey, you know what? Like, what? It's like, you got some pretty serious blood markers here. What kind of work do you do? Yeah, the blood tells everything.
Ooh.
And so I tell my doctor, I'm in IT. What part of IT? Cybersecurity. And you would have thought that I told him that I smoked a pack of cigarettes a day and drank a half a gallon of booze the way he responded.
Yes.
I mean, all of a sudden he's ordering this test and that test. And so at the end of that exercise, what I found out is there are markers in the blood that are able to help them see stressors.
Mm,
And every single marker that you could do in an advanced panel, I was way off the charts, above high.
yeah.
Now, I share my personal story, right? Because I really want this to resonate with each of you. I was taking on way too much
Mm,
of the burden of being a cybersecurity professional with a chief aim, right, of reducing risk for my organization. I was treating it as if it was my organization, and it's not.
mm,
There's the teachable moment. You are an advisor, or you have a part in that whole advisory process. These are not your companies.
yeah.
I'm not telling you to not give 102%. What I'm telling you is don't assume the stress and all that that does to the body by taking this on. Now let's talk corrective measures.
Right.
When you get a report like that, the first thing the doctor shares with you is how much do you exercise? What's your diet like? Do you meditate? So I had to implement all of those things at a deeper level. So I do a meditative walk somewhere between 8,000 and 10,000 steps a day.
Whew.
When something crosses my computer screen, I literally flip this chair around where I'm facing this wall behind me, and I do some breathing exercises to
Mm,
bring myself back down. I do not want cortisol spikes.
that's right.
When we're living in and heightened cortisol levels, it means when we go to bed at night, our body can't heal. And if
Right.
it can't heal, it enters into a state of dis-ease, and then that translates to disease.
Mhm.
So, what are the other practical steps? I think Jesse talked about them already. You got to really be careful what you're putting in your body, right? From a liquid standpoint, from a food standpoint. I had to give up all starches. I had to give up my greasy food Friday.
Dang it.
I had to give up copious amounts of red wine.
Oh, no, you
So sugar, and I had to replace those with vegetables, right? And lots of them in various colors and shades. What am I saying? Sleep is important, keeping stress at a minimum, right? In your personal life, look at that area too, because that can be a contributor just as much as you being a cybersecurity professional
That's
or
right.
whatever job you're doing. If you're a manager, that's equally stressful. You got all of the responsibility of your teams to contend with. And then just think about good health practices, getting 7 hours of sleep, drinking plenty of water, right?
Mm,
Having an exercise regimen, especially if you're above 40. And then just treating yourself. I think Jay said it just very nicely a little while ago is let yourself off the hook. Don't be your harshest critic. Love on yourself. Give yourself a break.
yeah.
Because I think at the end of the day, you're doing the best that you can. And if others have spoken into your life and have created a set of circumstances where you feel like you have to perform at this super high level, just let go of that. Decide today to let go of that
Decide.
and live where you can, do what you can, and feel good about that contribution.
That is so good. So good. And I'm, I can be warm and fuzzy sometimes or a lot. Um, but I think that's really important to love yourself, and
Yeah,
it's a learned practice for
yeah,
me. My daughter sees the highs and lows behind the scenes, and very few will see what's going on behind the scenes. But there's many days during the week where it looks like I'm a hacker. It looks like I have not bathed in 3 days. And by the way, those two are not linked. Okay. Oh, shoot. Oh, hell. Oh, God. Hackers love y'all. I do. You know that. Anyway, it looks like I haven't bathed in 3 days. I'm wearing my black hoodie. My hair's a mess. But, you know, I got to break that. And my daughter has actually really, she's become a high achiever like her mama, and I'm proud, but it's so important to break away from it and she's been my motivation and we haven't talked about our why, but that has a lot to do with our mindset too. They're very closely linked together.
Yeah.
But it's a learned practice to love myself enough and care about what I'm doing, that balance too, because people in cybersecurity, we love it. We like what we're doing. We like to solve problems. And by the way, there's not a complete solution to cybersecurity that causes, a little chaos in the mind or the environment, the industry,
Sure does.
all of us. But I think breaking up our day, the whole learning to be with yourself in the morning is hard for a lot of us, with all the stimuli, the news, TikTok for, many, and many adults actually for TikTok, but Gen Zers are young leaders, future cyber pros. Um, I know a lot are hanging out on TikTok and they open up their day with it and news and all the fun stuff. But to really learn to be with ourselves and start in control of our day, or just sitting there will do wonders, walking, eating right. Um, but then I want to transition here and then we'll go to questions here in a few minutes. But um, for there's that fine line between having a healthy mindset, maybe you don't have a healthy mindset, and this is like turn into a mental health issue. um, and mental health to me is, it's not a disease, it's an emotion such as anxiety, depression, overwhelm, feeling burnt out. That is more, it's an emotion unchecked, and it becomes chaos where we can't get out of bed, where we don't want to face the day. And I've been there. That's a season, but we can get out of it. So, can you talk to me a little bit about that? If we're already in there, like just some encouragement for, um, you know, I would say start with a CISO, who is feeling that and doesn't have anybody to open up to, maybe.
Yeah, well, actually, uh, Jessie and I had a dear friend who had, a very tragic situation befall him. And, it's situations like that that really bring a level of awareness to this that before maybe not so much. When it gets that close to home and it's someone that is near and dear to your heart, it kind of makes you evaluate. I'm hopeful that this conversation will help others that are on it and that will see it after evaluate where they are in this life cycle. But when you get to a point where you have this super duper level of anxiety, there's two things playing out principally, um, and one of which is you're looking in the rearview mirror, you're looking at your past, you're recounting things that maybe they didn't go as well, and God forbid if someone in authority said something about that event that sort of piled on to it or etched it a little deeper into your subconscious mind and your long-term memory. Situation one. Situation two is we're too far out in the future, right? We're looking at shoulda, wouldas, and couldas,
Mm, yeah.
and we're trying to calculate. Like I'm the analytical person, right? I want to know all the variables, so if something happens, I know exactly which way I'm gonna pivot.
Yeah.
And just life just doesn't give us all of that sometimes. And when we get like stimulus that says we gotta have it, therein lies the cortisol spikes. Therein lies that uncertainty about the future that makes us feel the way we feel. Stay in that state for a long time, and the next one on the list is depression.
Mm,
So, how do you shoot an interrupt into that to
right.
halt the process Well, it's like I was saying earlier, family. Sorry, I said it on the
I
podcast.
love it. You can say
Um,
family, they are family.
the way you interrupt that is you have to understand what's going on. You got to be at least fundamentally aware and
Yes.
having an awareness where you see that this thing is taking place,
Mhm.
right? That should be your signal to do one of two things, right? That careful evaluation of what's going on. Why does this keep happening? And is there a way out that I can see? And then do the way out if you can see it. If you cannot see it, and this is where this answer gets really tough and requires some level of bravery, you've got to get help.
Yes.
You have to get help. It's totally cool to get help. I've gotten help so many times I can't even count with both hands. I need hands and feet, right?
Same.
To
I know.
kind of tally that list. And there's nothing wrong with that.
There's strength and vulnerability.
There's an incredible amount of strength and vulnerability. Moreover, there's freedom.
Oh, yes.
So if you're in the heart of that whole burnout story where you're just going so hard that, it feels like any day now you're going to be at a tipping point,
Yeah.
or you already have cracks in your armor, in your glass, and it's like, I just don't know how much longer I can do that. Now's the time to pull back, right?
Right.
Don't take this job as seriously. I understand you have to exchange some time for some money to support your life. I get it. I
Mhm.
get it. But Jesse talked about a healthy balance between work and other activities. And it literally requires us to do the work, to make these observations, to tell where is the imbalance, go
Mhm.
fix it, and then let everybody know that needs to know this is the new way.
That's right.
And if there's no you, none of this other stuff matters, y'all. It just don't matter. If
No.
you're in a poor health state, it simply doesn't matter.
No. That's so good. I'm so glad you said all those things, and it just one word came to mind, and that's boundaries. We may hear about boundaries, but it's okay to start setting some for your personal life, but also your work life. And, that's a call to leaders, whether you're managing your team, leading your team, maybe you introduce boundaries, or call on your team to, open that door and let them know you encourage that, or you support them. And then if you don't have a manager that leads in such a way, then it's okay during that performance review to say, hey, I'm going to have to start cutting back here. I'm working 12-hour days when I signed up for 8-hour days. It's okay to work hard and work over your limit, but not live that way. Maybe for a season to tie things together, but and that puts pressure on employers to hire more people, which we can talk about that another day. So, just saying. All right. So maybe this is a good time to start asking some questions, y'all. Um, Jessica, thank you for joining. Dwayne said Michael Anderson is 100% top notch. And that's why I have him on the show, y'all. Just saying.
Oh, thank you
Yes,
so much to the both of you. That
thank
means a
you.
lot to me. Thank you.
Yes, Tillman, yes, some feedback here. Meditation and exercise is an integral part of a long career. Since COVID, it has been mandatory regular practice. Yes, and I know a lot of folks who have entered it, they've developed this new habit of exercise, and it's life changing.
That's right.
You're in a better mood, your mindset is, but you're also treat the people around you better, and you're able to absorb impact more, not
Yes.
easily, but
Yes.
with resilience, right?
Right.
Um, so I think that's so good. I do want to get to a question that was a little bit earlier on from Mr. Marcel. Can we use these same methods to fight imposter syndrome, or is there a different approach? And I would say yes, and there is also some other things, but I'll hand it over to Mr. Mike. 'Cause-
Shout out to Marcel. That's my nephew.
Oh,
So Yeah, I think though to get right to the heart of the question, you know, at the real core of imposter syndrome is, you know, it's two pieces. It's a story of, you know, I'm not sure I can do it, right? And that has various extremes, but really, I'm not sure I can do it. And then what's the feeder? The feeder is anxiety, right? I want to do this, but I just don't know if I got it. And that loop just plays over and over and over and over, and to the point where it's going on so long that this interrupt goes the wrong way, and it results in the imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
So we sort of undo it ourselves because we're afraid of perhaps what the outcome would be if we try it and we don't hit the mark. I want to say something about hitting the mark too. For a long time, I have always wanted and had a burning desire above all other things, uh, to be top notch,
Mhm.
best of class, right? I grew up very, very humble means in the projects. So I was determined that when I get big, that's what I used to say when I was a kid. When I get big, I'm gonna be somebody. I'm
Mm.
gonna do some cool stuff. In fact, I'm gonna be an executive. So I have always been really wound tight. Um,
That's
and I
good.
wanted to
Yeah.
overachieve, overachieve, overachieve. And there was so many times where I came so close to various ailments that my doctor said, whatever it is you're doing and thinking and trying to do, slow down. It
Mhm.
was then that I developed a very warm welcome for the 80/20 rule.
Oh,
I
yes.
stopped trying to be the A plus guy. And I said to myself, self, we're going to have to become very okay. This is how I talk to me.
That's
We're
good.
going to have to become very okay with being a B.
Mhm. That's
And
good.
let me tell you, when I start doing that, my entire world changed.
Freedom. Freedom.
And
Yeah.
all of that negative sentiment that I was having toward me, toward the people that I was interacting with that had anything to do with, you know, grading or assessing my output, it just sort of slipped away. And there was freedom there as well. And it all goes back to a journey we call self development.
Right. So that, man, thank you for sharing all of it. That you've shared some really good stories that I think is encouraging for myself and those are the audience. But um, the so with I want to kind of answer that question, just piggyback off of what you were talking about and what you shared is those limited beliefs. I think is also natural as you're leveling up. It's those who say they don't have imposter syndrome are liars. Okay, just saying. That's my opinion. Okay, opinion. I do believe. I mean, anytime if you're doing it right and you're really growing and you have that growth mindset, that I can do this mindset, you're like. When I did this podcast, I started it when I started a company, when I started my first job as a recruiter back in the day. I I felt confident I could do it, but it doesn't mean I wasn't fearful, right? It was it was hard for me to cross that line and um so I just it's not a sign of weakness. It means that okay, that fear that drives us, it can either drive us downward or it can drive us that fight or flight can push us over the that hump.
Yeah.
And then it gets easier and you feel confident and you're good. You don't have imposter syndrome about the role you're in, but you're feeling it. And maybe, that whatever's next, whatever your next goal is or challenge, you might be in a role right now where you're just not quite feeling like you're, I guess, equipped to have that role, but you will over time if you keep pressing into that fear.
Okay.
So there was something else, but I want to make sure if there's any questions that we do get to them. Thank you, Steve, for the feedback. I don't know if you could see it by Michael, but I call you Mike, but he said that we've helped him immensely. Mike has helped him with a stressful season. Thank you. That's what I love to do. Help people. Mike, you're doing good. Jessica Nimmers, she's an awesome leader as well.
She is
She's great.
fantastic human being.
Yes. So, do you have anything that maybe has come to mind that we can offer that we haven't touched on? Because
I was just reading a note as you were scrolling, and someone mentioned being present.
yes,
And I think it would be a good segue. I don't know if we're getting ready to wrap up or not.
10.
Uh, so when an individual decides to be present, what they're effectively saying and doing is that today is going to be all that I focus on. There may be some things that have happened. I'm not bringing those forward. There may be some lessons learned, right, that I've added to my database of things that I'll be able to perhaps do well or better. I'll bring those with me. But anything that's a drag on me, that's not coming into today.
Let it go.
And then being in today, where all of your energy and strength and capability are to impact your tomorrow,
Yeah.
is what I wanted to pull out of that comment. And I've been doing this now for a little over 5 years. That too is a game changer, because if you're rooted and grounded in today
Hmm.
and you're not too concerned about tomorrow, you're just, hey, what can I do today to
Yeah.
seal this up and make this a 80% day?
Right.
Um, you get to the end of the day and you look at what you've done, and you're able to feel like, yeah, I did that.
Heck yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
if you are too far forward and that has been the dominating thought of the day, it's probably distracted you from doing the things that you would have desired to do today. And moreover, there would have been things that you would have been able to see and experience and enjoy
Hmm.
that you totally missed out on because you were too far forward, or
Right.
maybe looking in the rearview mirror. So presence is totally key. I don't know who it was that said that, but I totally
It's so true.
agree with him or her.
Yes. Thank you for touching on that. That is so good. And it's also it's empowering, right? When we take control over that and we decide how we're going to feel about it. And I think that also just being grateful for our present moment,
Mhm.
and focusing more on what we can do now to there's one word that comes to mind, the power of visual, I can't say it right. Come on.
Visualization.
Visualization, yes. The power of visualization and just seeing what we want to happen. It's not magic, but it kind of is
Yeah.
when,
Yeah.
I mean, you
Yeah.
just talked about multiple stories on how, I mean, that's what stood out earlier is, wow, like you said, I'm going to be somebody, I'm going to do this, I'm going to achieve, I'm going to accomplish and become an executive. And gosh darn it, you did.
Yeah.
And I've done the same for myself, and there's a burden of achieving and wanting to be something great.
Yes. Yes.
There really is, but, it's I love it. But anyway, all right, so, on that note, if there's any questions, feel free to put them in. Otherwise, yes, thank you guys for all the positive feedback. Um, yeah, so I've put in the chat here. You can follow Michael Anderson on LinkedIn and My Thought Life podcast. Check them out to take deeper dives into mindset and how we can get that going in any instance, personal, work life, cybersecurity. That's where a lot of us hang out, but all of this can be applied across the board. So thank you, Mike, for joining us today. I really do
Absolutely.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
I can't wait to talk to you offline about all this and, get some refreshers for myself. Thank
Excellent.
you. All right. Y'all have a good day. Thank you, guys.